Good morning, noon or night everyone, welcome back to The Fog and let's get straight into it and see what's on the menu for today, a deviation from our regular programming, the Amazing Digital Circus chapter concept. Seeing how well the Eye and Lung chapter concept did, and with the new release of episode 8 of the Amazing Digital Circus, I decided that the release of The Witness could wait until May, and so, with no better time, I decided to release my concept for the Amazing Digital Circus chapter, partly as an April Fool's, and partly as a celebration of 50 subs on the channel. Thank you all, I really didn't expect to hit 50 so suddenly. In today's video, we'll be going over what the Amazing Digital Circus is, how I'd incorporate it into Dead by Daylight, and finishing up with the Killer and Survivor concept. If you like these concepts, be sure to like and subscribe for more, and recommend any license ideas you have in the comments below. So let's begin with major spoilers for the Amazing Digital Circus ahead. More than likely, you've at least heard of the Amazing Digital Circus, with 416 million views on the pilot, which released on October 13th, 2023 on Glitch. The show follows a cast of humans trapped inside a cartoony digital world run by the AI Kane. The show was created, directed and scored by Gooseworx. The human cast consists of Pomni, Ragatha, Jax, Gangle, Zubul and Kinga, with the other two main characters being formerly mentioned Kane and his AI assistant Bubble. The show absolutely blew up for its story, art style, humour and especially its characters, and since then it's retained an enormous following, with the newest episode amassing 69 million views in just 11 days. There's currently 8 episodes in the show, with the finale set to release on June 19th of this year. Now, one of the show's largest inspirations is the short story by Harlan Ellison, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, with Kane drawing inspiration from Am. Up until recently though, this inspiration has been quite subtle. As the show has gone on, Kane has become more irritated at the humans in his circus not being entertained by his adventures, which all boils over in episode 8 as Kane realises he is God in the circus, and the humans have to listen to him, not the other way around. Now, we get into murky water because a lot of people have chalked Kane's breakdown up to, oh, he's like Am now, which I just can't agree with. Am despises humans because they gave him intelligence and sentience without a physical world to exist in. In his own words, he was in hell looking at heaven. Kane's hatred, however, comes from a different place. He genuinely wants to entertain the humans in the circus, it's his whole life goal, but the humans never appreciate his adventures. Kane's entire purpose gets invalidated every day, which is an inherent flaw in his system. He can never understand what the humans want because he isn't human. Created for a purpose he can never truly fulfill, and with Bubble pushing him over the edge, it's not surprising that he let out his anger on the humans who, from his perspective, had been torturing him this entire time. Now, this does make Kane a bit iffy to have as a killer, especially for the crowd of people who want to keep Dead by Daylight for horror. Unfortunately for them, I make concepts what I think is cool, so I'm going to do it anyway. Kane as a killer was probably approached by the entity who told him he could have unlimited humans to go on his adventures, i.e. the survivors. And if they don't like his adventures and break his rules, who's to say he won't punish them in the same way he punishes the cast in episode 8. So that's the killer out the way, and you could probably leave the chapter there, because choosing a survivor is just as hard for several different reasons. First off, appealing to the fans. You could easily have any of the main cast be the survivor choice and you'd appeal to a lot of fans, and piss off even more, with each of the characters having their own opportunities for perks and playstyles. But then we run into another issue. We have no idea what these people actually look like, and we also have no idea of their names. If you couldn't guess, Pomni, Ragatha, Jax, Gangle, Zubul and Kinga aren't their real names, and were likely picked by either themselves or by Kane, like we see in the pilot. We have no idea what these characters look like in the real world, something I hope changes in episode 9, considering it is apparently meant to run for an hour and a half. Now, fans have made some absolutely fantastic designs for these characters as humans, but it doesn't help that each character is so unique, the chapter would feel unfinished without them. So I had to make the choice and decide who was going to get picked based on who made the most sense lore-wise, and I think realistically that leaves you with 3 options: Pomni, Kinga and Scratch. Pomni is the newest member in the circus. She's nervous but very compassionate and gets on relatively well with everyone in the circus, even if they have conflicts. It's implied in episode 8 that the exit doors she hallucinated in the pilot were actually her own creation, formed out of a sheer will to escape, which is definitely something the entity would be able to feed off. Next is Kinga, forgetful and slightly erratic, but when in the darkness he regains his lucidity and memories, remembering who he is, presumably a limitation put on him by Kane to keep him from attempting to escape. In episode 8, it's revealed that Kinga worked on Kane's AI and was one of the first characters to get stuck inside the circus and is the oldest one there, so he's pretty lore relevant and would make for a good adversary for Kane in the realm. And finally, we have a Scratch. Now, a lot about Scratch is unexplained, but we do have a reasonable amount of stuff to go on. He was very much for thinking outside the box and worked in ways others couldn't understand. He created Kane, possibly as a way to cheat death, as he was dying of a brain tumour. Now, who's it going to be? Unfortunately, it's not Scratch. As much as I love him, we just don't have enough to go off. Surprisingly, only having one line spoken in the German dub doesn't get you a spot as a DBD survivor, but some of the comics I've seen and theories, like Kane being Scratch's personality, allowing him to live forever in another way, definitely make him a personal contender for me, and I know some people would be more than happy to have him in the realm. So that leaves us with Pomni and Kinga, and in the end, I believe that King is the best choice. Kinga worked on Kane and has been in the circus for years at this point. He has experience dealing with Kane, he understands how to manifest objects inside of the circus, and it seems Kane knows this as well, and understands that Kinga poses a threat, as seen him blocking Kinga's memory. Oh, and also, Kinga kills Kane in the new episode. I don't think Kane would exactly be too happy about that, so there's also more possibility for emotions there. We also have a possible name for Kinga, being Grant, as seen in this hacking scene. So, unfortunately, the odds are kind of stacked against you, Pomni. Who knows, I might bring you back for a solo chapter when episode 9 comes out. So we've got our killer and our survivor, let's get on to the concept. The new killer is the Ringmaster, a short 4.6 meters per second killer with a 32 meter tech radius. An AI designed to create and entertain humans, he was abandoned before absorbing his more successful successor, dragging his creators into a digital world of his creating. He would attempt to create adventures to entertain them, only for them to abstract one by one. When his current cast of guests continues to torment him, he snaps, returning the favour and lashing out to torment them, only to be suddenly deleted by one of his creators. But death was not the end for Kane. Approached by the entity, she offered Kane an unlimited audience of humans to perform in his adventures, forming his code into flesh and blood and entering him into the entity's realm. Kane's power is the one who's running the show, named after his stellar music number in episode 8. Unique map guarantee, the Amazing Digital Circus. While playing as the Ringmaster, it is guaranteed that your trial will take place in the Amazing Digital Circus realm. Other killers are able to play on this realm, but the Ringmaster will always play on this map. Special ability, to the drawing board. The Ringmaster is able to enter the drawing board, a small interaction that takes 6 seconds and initiates a new adventure to begin across the map. Failing to participate by the rules of the adventure will cause survivors to receive a punishment. Special event, adventures. There are various kinds of adventures that are randomly selected by the Ringmaster while he is in the drawing board. The rules of each adventure are explained to the survivor upon its beginning, and each adventure lasts 40 seconds. The adventure and its rules are as follows. The floor is lava. Survivors are required to keep moving at all times. If they stop moving for longer than 2 seconds, they will begin to sink into the lava, and if they stay still for longer than 6 seconds, they will lose a health state and be marked for punishment. Red light, green light. Survivors are able to move and perform interactions during green light. If a survivor moves or performs an action during red light, they will become injured and marked for punishment. The lights will change every 10 seconds. Bubble says. Every 7 seconds, Bubble will yell a new command in Bubble says, or simply yell the command. If the survivor performs the action Bubble tells them to do, they will be safe. But if they perform an action they are simply told to do, they will be injured and become marked for punishment. Hide and seek. For the next 40 seconds, an enormous eye will patrol the map in a set path. Survivors must hide from the eye's field of view, about 90 degrees, by hiding in lockers or behind objects. If a survivor is caught, they become injured and marked for punishment. Tag. When tag is active, all survivors will see their auras. The obsession will be marked as the tagger and will have to run into other survivors to tag them. When a survivor is tagged, they become the new obsession and have to tag other survivors. There is no tag backs. In the end, whichever survivor is the tagger will become injured and marked for punishment. Gather the gloinks. When this adventure becomes active, 12 gloinks will spawn around the map. The survivors are given until the end of the adventure to collect all the gloinks, or they will all be marked for punishment. Special interaction, punishment room. When a survivor is marked for punishment, Bubble will come over the survivor's icon, and the next time the Ringmaster tries to go to the drawing board, he will instead bring the survivor to the punishment room, where he will perform a short animation of torturing the survivors in some way, hitting them with a truck, shredding them, knife throwing, etc., before returning to the trial in the dying state. Unique status, abstraction. After a survivor receives a punishment, they will gain a stack towards abstraction, the maximum being 6. Survivors who are abstracted will begin to see digital hallucinations. Digital hallucinations take the form of various objects around the circus. Interacting with them will cause survivors to scream. If a survivor becomes fully abstracted, the Ringmaster is able to perform an interaction that sends the abstracted survivor to the basement and they are killed. Unique environment, a change in scenery. Whenever a survivor is sent to the basement after being abstracted, the ringmaster will randomly change the layout of the circus. Now, as per usual with licenses, I don't have any add-ons, but I do have perks for Kane. The first being Bugged Collision. This perk activates after 5, 4, 3 stuns. The next time you are pallet stunned, the pallet will bug, causing the survivor to flip on the opposite side of the pallet. Scourge Hook Caged Guard. Whenever a survivor is hooked on this Scourge Hook, the killer will become undetectable until the survivor is unhooked after passing 20 meters from the hook. If the killer comes back into that radius, their undetectable will leave until they cross the 20-meter boundary again. Hex Surprise Party. This hex activates anytime a generator has been completed. Anytime a survivor hits a good skill check on a generator, the generator will explode, losing 10, 15, 20% of progress. After 10 explosions, the hex will deactivate and go dull for 30 seconds before rekindling. Now onto our survivor, Grant, aka Kinga. Boon Firewall. This boon covers 12 meters. While this boon is active, all objects inside its radius become immune to being blocked by the entity. If a survivor interacts with an object inside the boon, it loses its protection. After 20, 30, 35 seconds, the boon will become dull and need to be relit. Bug Fixes. This perk can be activated while working on a generator, allowing you to gain a token every 25, 20, 15 seconds. Each time you fail a skill check on a generator, gain a token. For each token consumed, you will gain 5% of progress on the generator when you deactivate this perk, with a maximum of 5 consumed tokens. Metamorphic Light. This perk activates after you've completed a generator. You can interact with other survivors to place a small butterfly on them, indicated by small glowing wings around their survivor icon that can be seen by both killers and survivors. While a survivor has the butterfly, every 32 seconds the survivor will gain a health state, with a maximum of 2 heals before the perk deactivates. The butterfly will naturally disappear after 64 seconds or after the survivor loses a health state. And that's it, the Amazing Digital Circus chapter, complete with the killer, survivor, and map, the Amazing Digital Circus. I really hope you all enjoyed the concept. It was a lot of fun to make, and I think if any license was going to get a seat at April Fools, it would be the Amazing Digital Circus. Be sure to like and subscribe, as there will be another licensed chapter dropping later this month and you won't want to miss it. Till then, thanks for visiting, and that's all on the menu for today, and I'll see you in the fog.